Hello again everyone and welcome back to SFF180. Thomas here, your host as always. Today you're getting one of my rare contributions to Top 5 Wednesday, and this one happens to be a crossover with the BookTube SFF Babbles for the BookTube SFF Awards, naturally. Creatures, whether they're extraterrestrial or magical or purely figments of an author's fevered imagination, have always been a staple of nearly every genre of speculative fiction. Imagining otherworldly life, as I have said before, is a way of making this big old universe seem a little less lonely after all. Of course, science fiction, fantasy, and horror writers being who they are, these creatures can either befriend or the foeiest foes who ever foed. It would be impossible to catalog the full menagerie of imaginary creatures over the past century, but we all have our favorites. And here, after a little thought, are 5 favorites of mine. Now, some of these beasts I would not be too afraid to encounter in the darker recesses of the universe, but most of them, yeah, I'd keep my distance. Also, since I am drawing on SFF and horror written fiction and not cinema, I'm afraid that our beloved xenomorphs are going to have to sit this one out. No disrespect here, Gieger. Now, do I even need to say anything about this guy? No, of course I don't. We're probably all on the same page here. Absolute unit. When it comes to the Cthulhu mythos, well, naturally, Cthulhu himself seems to have all the fans. Old Tentacle Face has become a horror icon, so much so that he's not the least bit scary anymore. No, for my money, if you want to delve into the mythos and dredge up a creature that has retained its power to be existentially horrifying, and that has also, I would argue, been a greater influence on more writers, you've got to go with Nyarlathotep. Nyarlathotep is the most interesting, to me, of all the fearsome gods in the Cthulhu mythos because where most of them are unutterable abominations hibernating in sunken cities or floating out in space somewhere near the center of the galaxy, Nyarlathotep puts on his big god panties and gets things done. He frequently takes human form, appearing to various characters either as an Egyptian pharaoh or just a tall man who appears jet black from head to toe. He works to build himself an active cult following among people and enjoys cruelty on a global scale for its own sake. And while he appears convincingly human whenever he pleases, a lot of the time he'll look something like this, or 1,000 other nightmarish forms. This creature is so influential that an entire generation of writers have written him into their own works, including Stephen King, turning him into Randall Flagg in The Stand, who is also an incarnation of the Man in Black from the Dark Tower series. Ultimately, what makes Nyarlathotep so sinister is that his propensity for evil isn't anything that's indescribable and cosmic or anything like that. Really, it's an all-too-human evil at its core. In his 2007 novel The Terror, Dan Simmons, who won the Hugo Award for Hyperion, which has its own share of cool creatures, took the real-life 1845 sea voyage led by Sir John Franklin, which set out to find the fabled Northwest Passage and ended in total disaster with the loss of both ships and all hands, and transformed it into a gripping epic of survival horror, pitting the hapless sailors not only against the frozen elements and dwindling supplies, but also a fearsome supernatural monstrosity the indigenous people in the story call the Tombback. This beast takes the form of an oversized mutant polar bear with freakishly semi-human features, And when the novel was adapted into an exceptionally good, if bleak, miniseries on AMC, the filmmakers kept all of the best moments of Tombback carnage intact. A beast created as the result of a war between Inuit gods, all Tombback does is kill everything and devour souls. And the only person holding the creature at bay is Lady Silence, an indigenous woman who belongs to a group of shaman who have developed psychic communication with it. So Tombback keeps Lady Silence safe, but has no compunction slaughtering all the hapless white men foolish enough to trespass on its turf. The miniseries actually makes more of an effort to give the creature some sympathetic aspects than the book does. But in the end, if ever you need your fix of gory Arctic demigod bear slaughter, good old Tombback has got you covered. In blood. Well, things seem to be getting a bit gloomy, so let's lighten the mood a bit, shall we? Everyone who has read even a few of Terry Pratchett's Discworld novels has their favorite characters, but for me, the series just wouldn't be complete without the old Reaper man himself. Now, it took a few books for Pratchett to really develop the character of Death into the lovable and avuncular caps lock talking fellow fans came to embrace, but really, I find him the warmest and most human denizen of the Discworld by far. Now, there might be some debate as to whether or not he can properly be called a creature, but I mean, it's not like he's a person. I mean, he's Death. A lot of why he's such a great character is probably because he's so endearingly baffled by humans. I mean, he's fascinated by us, he likes us, he's sympathetic towards us, and yet he can't always seem to figure us out when he's presented with our quirks. He's not here to do harm, he doesn't kill us, he, or one of his minions, is only here to collect. There are times when he has bent the rules a little bit to allow someone to go on living, and he is, on occasion, genuinely distressed at the fact that dying is inevitable for humans and that he is not allowed to prevent it. He rides a horse called Binky, which is a real horse. He once tried riding a skeletal horse, but too many bits kept falling off. In short, he's a personification of the kind of gallows humor so many of us use when confronting our own mortality. And it's a humor that Pratchett channeled so well that, according to Wikipedia, he often got letters from terminally ill fans saying they hoped Pratchett's version of death was going to be the real thing. When Pratchett himself died in 2015 after a long bout with Alzheimer's, his fans, well, let's just say, tried to keep the spirit alive. But as Death himself said in one of the books, no one gets pardoned for living. Finally, I wouldn't be me if I didn't wrap this list up with some proper science fiction. Vernor Vinge's Zones of Thought series, which began with the Hugo-winning epic A Fire Upon the Deep, has its fair share of conceptual alien life based around the series' premise, that the universe is in fact divided into separate zones where, for some reason or another, the development of sentient life, let alone technological civilization, occurs at either faster or slower rates. Of all the aliens we encounter in the books, I was particularly fascinated by the Tynes, a race of dog-like beings. I mean, imagine actual doggos, right? Except with longer necks, who exist in packs that share a single mind. So an individual Tyne will actually be a pack of 5 or 6 creatures, each one enhancing the intelligence of the group as a whole. If a pack loses a member, the collective individual loses a little bit of mental prowess unless it can replace its lost member. The Tynes first appear in A Fire Upon the Deep, a challenging but absorbing book that is a deep dive into hard space opera if you're ready for that sort of thing. But they really play a major role in the 2011 sequel, The Children of the Sky, a book that got a mixed reception, but one that I quite liked and think is highly underrated, though I admit it does take dedicated reading to get into. That entire book is set on the Tynes' home world, where a colony of humans who are there for reasons you'll understand if you read A Fire Upon the Deep, are struggling to coexist with the creatures in the midst of serious political turmoil and a crisis of leadership, both among the humans and the Tynes themselves. It's rich, thematically complex science fiction storytelling. And as for the Tynes, well, they're good dogs, Brent. And there you have it! Those are 5 of my favorite creatures from all my years of reading all manner of speculative fiction. Now, what are some of your favorites? Let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, you know the drill. If you enjoyed watching, please hit that like button, share the video far and wide with all of your SFF reading friends, and above all, please subscribe. If you have not done so, that is how the channel grows. You can also support the channel at my TeePublic store and at my Patreon, where recruits into Wink's Army get little perks like getting to see some of these videos early. I want to thank all of those people for their additional support. I want to thank the rest of you for being the very best viewers in all of BookTube. And until I see you all next time, happy reading.